So I just got done binge watching the first season of Echo. I'm not sure if I regret that decision or not. And there's a lot to talk about. I'm going to start off with no spoilers and then get to spoilers later on. And with that all out of the way.
Come with me, and you'll be in a world of pure imagination. Take a look and you'll see into your imagination.
So starting off with no spoilers and talking about if I like the show or not, I just want to start off with this. This show is incredibly misleading. This show was hyping up a ton of Kingpin and Daredevil, and then when you watch the show, the majority of the screen time has nothing to do with Daredevil or Kingpin. It's like they advertise that stuff just to get people to watch the show, and that's very misleading. I'm not really a big fan of that because people going in the show are going to expect one thing and they're going to get something completely different. I'll just talk about the characters that were in the trailers, which were Kingpin and Echo. I'll talk about Echo first. I liked her character. I felt like a lot of her motivations made sense. I felt like she was a badass in the series, and overall it was a solid performance from someone that didn't speak. I felt like they did a good job of creating a good and interesting character that couldn't even speak throughout the entire series, and I can't wait to see her in Daredevil. Now with Kingpin, for the majority of the episodes that he was in, I liked, and I think they did a good job of making him feel like the Netflix version of Kingpin. Vincent D'Onofrio always gives an exceptional performance, and this is no different here. But I gotta say, in one episode, I'm not gonna say which one it is, they do kind of mess up the character, and it's just kind of lame what they do with him. Other than that, both of these characters are good. Now, I can't really talk about the story without getting into spoilers, but my feelings on the story is a little bit all over the place. But I gotta say, I really thought this series was gonna be much darker. Like, the trailers portrayed this series to be a pretty dark and brutal show. It's really not that brutal, and unfortunately something that the MCU can't just stop for like one show. MCU comedy is kind of there still. Like, they still have that one MCU character who always makes the jokes. I'm not gonna spoil anything with that, but there were still a bit of quips in this series. It wasn't natural comedy, it was MCU comedy in a TVMA series. I don't know why they can't stop. It's like a drug for them. They don't know how to stop telling jokes. I mean, to be fair, this show was more serious than any other MCU show. And they took things seriously for the most part. There weren't jokes in scenes that were meant to be serious. But the jokes were just kind of thrown in there. There's some stupid comedy scenes that don't need to be in there. It's like Marvel can't help themselves. I'll talk about it more in spoilers, but that aspect of the show really frustrated me. And I wish the show was just more darker, and I wish the fight scenes were more brutal. I mean, they were pretty brutal at times, especially in the first episode. But it was nowhere near as brutal as the show advertised it was going to be, and it ended up being. So yeah, based off of the trailers, I felt a little misled, but just judging this series on its own, I did like it. I would say it's the second best MCU Disney Plus show, not the overall MCU show. And that's kind of not saying a lot because most of the Disney Plus MCU shows are either mid or average or just bad or really bad, like Secret Invasion. Like, oh my goodness, that show is just really freaking terrible. Echo is good with a lot of great moments, but then there's a lot of moments that aren't so great, and the comedy is just, it's really annoying. It really is. They just can't help themselves, and I don't know why. Like, they need to go to an intervention for a comedy because it just needs to stop, at least for one show or one movie, please. I can't stand it anymore. And if you're gonna do comedy, can you not do the forced humor? Just do it like a natural thing. Like, don't do forced comedy. Like in Daredevil, the comedy in that was like little, there wasn't a lot of it, but when there was like a little humorous moments, it wasn't forced jokes. It was just stuff that played into the scene and just natural conversation between two people that are just making like jokes like real people would. The jokes in the MCU always come off as artificial. At least recently they come off as artificial. And they're just noticeable here because the show could have been a lot more serious and a lot more darker, and it just wasn't. I will say this show does fit in the Netflix MCU universe quite well, and I could see Netflix being behind this MCU series. Because let's be honest, not all the MCU Netflix shows were amazing or masterpieces like Daredevil. But this show was good. It wasn't anything great or really good or anything like that. And the action scenes were pretty entertaining for the most part, especially the Daredevil and Echo fight scene. I'm going to give this show a 70%. It's a good show, probably the second best MCU Disney Plus show, which isn't saying much. And I have a good amount of problems with this show. Alright, let's talk spoilers. Spoiler warning, you have been warned. In 3, 2, 1. All right, let's head into spoilers. All right, I think the thing that I was kind of frustrated with the most, and I mean, I did like the aspect of the show, but I didn't know we were getting this aspect of the show, is the fact that Echo really focuses on her family a lot, and not even in New York, and it does focus stuff with Kingpin, but it wasn't as much Kingpin and Maya as I thought we were going to be getting. There's just a lot of family drama that goes on in the series, and in the end, by the final episode, it's not really 100% resolved or satisfied. I wasn't like, oh wow, this came full circle or anything. And there was like stuff with her cousin Bonnie that wasn't really resolved either, and it wasn't as good or as developed as it should have been. But I did like her family, especially her uncle and her grandmother. I did like Bonnie too, but they didn't really do much with her, and it wasn't really developed and come full circle by the end. It was like, I felt like there was still something that needed to be resolved there, and it wasn't really fleshed out or resolved by the end of the show. Maybe they'll explore the relationship between Bonnie and Maya in season 2, if there is going to be a season 2. But yeah, it's a bit of a loose end, and it didn't wrap up properly. But yeah, I did not know we were going to get a family drama like this. And it kind of annoys me that I feel a bit misled, and I'm sure the fans watching this show are going to feel really angry about it, because people on the internet get really angry about the biggest and littlest things. I'm not saying don't have the right to feel angry or anything like that, but knowing how people react to things, people are going to really react negatively to the fact that this trailer's really misled the audience, because based off the trailers, it looked like this show was going to be taking place in New York, and it was going to be a gritty, dark, street level drama. So the fact that I was misled, it kind of knocks the series down a bit. But either way, my rating, I think, would still be a 70%, even if I knew going into the show it was going to be a family drama. Also, going into the show, I thought it was going to be much more dark and brutal. Wasn't really as dark and brutal as it was advertised. I mean, there were some really brutal moments for Disney Plus, for sure, but it never went to the levels that Daredevil did. I'm just hoping Daredevil Born Again, or whatever they're going to rename it, maybe they're renaming it because they're redoing the entire show, scrapping everything they have so far and starting from scratch. I just hope that Daredevil, the new show, will be as dark as the original series. So now, speaking on Kingpin, like I said earlier in the review, Kingpin felt in character to what he was in the original Netflix series for the most part, and also, like I said, performance by Vincent D'Onofrio was exceptional. It was fantastic, and for the most part, it felt like Netflix's Kingpin. But in the final episode, his character was kind of inconsistent. Throughout the series, it was consistent. Like, Kingpin does have people that he cares about, and he does have love in him. He has the ability to love people. It's not like he's some sort of emotionless monster like we saw with his love for Vanessa. Problem is here, like in the last episode, he just kind of like automatically switches, and he's like, you know what, I'm gonna kill you, I'm gonna kill your family, I'm gonna, like, blah blah blah. And it's like, you betrayed me, and it's like, you didn't think she betrayed you in Hawkeye? Like, that whole thing kind of felt out of character, didn't make sense. And then when Echo went into his mind, she was like, let that stuff go. I was like, what are they doing? Are they gonna try to redeem Kingpin? If they try to redeem Kingpin in any sort of way in the MCU, that will be just terrible. Ruin the tragicness that's to the character. And some characters need to stay bad. Kingpin needs to stay bad. He needs to either get killed off at some point in the future or just stay in jail forever. No happy ending for Kingpin. Or maybe there could be a happy ending if they decide to make all the heroes lose or something like that. But it looks like Echo set up a redemption arc for Kingpin with her going into his mind. And I'm really going to hate that. I am going to hate that with a passion. Also, like I said, I was fine with everything they did with Echo in this show. She had powers now. Apparently, she could give those powers to her family. I thought that was kind of stupid. Not the fact that she has powers, the fact that she was able to give her powers to her family or activate the powers that were with them or something like that. And then they were beating up Kingpin's bad guys, and I was like, what the heck? This is stupid. But it wasn't that bad. I would say the final episode might be the weakest of the series. It just has some issues and character inconsistencies, and it didn't wrap up things 100%. The best episode of the show would either be episode 1 or 4, like the episodes that focus the most on Kingpin and Echo. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is the post-credit scene at the end of the show, which sets up the Daredevil show. Now, I'm going to talk about some spoilers for the leaked original series that came out, like what the original Daredevil Born Again was going to be. I'm going to talk about what that show was going to be like. I don't know if you want to hear about that or not. I mean, the show is no longer going to exist because it's going to be a completely new series. Just giving you guys a warning, because they might end up using some of the stuff that was originally going to be in the original Daredevil Born Again into the new Daredevil Born Again. Just letting you guys know, low spoiler warning now. And when they made Echo, they had the intention of making the original Daredevil Born Again series to show that they filmed for like 5 episodes. They had 5 episodes of filming done and realized how horrible it was, and they decided to scrap the whole thing. So this post-credit scene was supposed to be for that original Daredevil show, and I really just can't believe that the leaks were true. I mean, the original leaks for the show were Kingpin was going to become mayor, and he was going to build this task force to take down Spider-Man and Daredevil and Punisher, and he had like this thing against any kind of superheroes. And this post-credit scene set that up, and I just can't believe the original show was actually going to be that bad. Like stuff from the original Daredevil Born Again show that the leaks came out was that like Foggy was going to die, and Daredevil wasn't going to be able to suit up until the 4th episode, and apparently it was no longer going to be 18 episodes, and all that stuff I can't believe is true. I'm pretty sure the leaks for the original Daredevil series are really accurate, and they sound really horrible. Like, if that show came out, thank God they're scrapping it, because if that original show came out with the idea of killing Foggy off and making the show a mainly lawyer show with barely any Daredevil in it, no Karen at all, and this whole fake Punisher storyline that they had in the show, and the way the whole show was set up originally, it sounded terrible. It sounded like a disgrace to the original Netflix show. And then like Daredevil apparently hanging everything up because Foggy died. You could look up the leaks for yourself, but it all sounds really terrible, and I can't believe that was going to originally be the case. And the end of Echo set up the leak stuff from the Daredevil Born Again show. Thank God they're scrapping that entire thing. I'm guessing they're going to still keep the storyline of Kingpin becoming mayor. I just hope they don't end up killing Foggy anymore, and bring back Karen. Bring back the original cast. They hyped up Echo from the hype of the original series. They hyped up Echo using the original Netflix show. They know the original Netflix show is popular. Why would they kill off Foggy and not mention Karen at all and bring in this other new girl? And it's just really frustrating. And if the new Daredevil Born Again show is still going to be trash and anything like the original leaked version that came out, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm going to go on an hour rant, because you guys don't understand. Daredevil is one of my favorite shows of all time, my favorite superhero thing ever. It's a masterpiece, and if they mess that up in any kind of way, it's going to break my heart, honestly, because Daredevil holds a special place in my heart, and I love the filmmaking in that show, and if they mess that up in any kind of way, it's really going to make me mad. I'm just going to be honest. And yeah, and also I want to talk about Daredevil in the show. He was fine for what he did in the show. It was cool seeing him. The action scene between Echo and Daredevil was pretty good. I'm just going to end this off with, I like the show. It should have been darker, and it blows my mind, and not in a good way, that the MCU comedy is still kind of there in a TVMA series meant for adults. And also they had the MCU comedic character and the cousin, one of the guy cousin. He was like kind of a dummy, kind of dumbass. He was comedic relief in the series, and I don't know why there needs to be a comedic relief typical MCU generic character in every single MCU project. Not every project needs a dumbass. I'm just like, why? Why can't they help themselves? Why can't they not stop with the comedy and the stupid comedic characters in every series? It's in every movie, in every TV show. It's too much now. It's generic. It's so frustrating, honestly. If they just cut out the comedy in Echo and just made it a bit darker and a bit more brutal, this show could have been bumped up to at least a 75%. There's a lot of good and great things in the show, but it's just mixed with a not great finale and stupid comedy, annoying comedic characters, and the false advertising, which doesn't affect the score for me, but it is pretty annoying that they advertised one thing and we got something almost completely different. So yeah, those were my thoughts on Echo. I guess we should be happy that the MCU made a mostly serious show. They still have their MCU shenanigans in there, but at least they made something that was a bit more dark and brutal than their other shows and projects. Still not the level of brutalness and darkness of the Netflix OG shows, but maybe we'll get there eventually. I'm not sure. I just really am hoping Daredevil is going to be good, and I would be okay if Echo got a season 2. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I I like this show, even though I have a lot of complaints with it. I think there's a lot of good stuff in here. I like some of her family members. I like Echo as a character. The directing was actually really good in the show, and the way that they did her action scenes were really good too. I like the moments where things got silent and then went back to being loud again. It was like Netflix Daredevil level of directing, and it was pretty good in that aspect of the show.